Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the monthly breakfast for dispute resolvers that's co-sponsored by the Association for Conflict Resolution of Greater New York and the City University of New York Dispute Resolution Center at John Jay College. I'm Maria Volpe. I'm a professor at John Jay and director of the Dispute Resolution Program there. This breakfast is number 229 since 9/11 when I started these breakfasts. We always met in person at John Jay, and since COVID interfered with our in-person sessions, we've been doing these virtually since April. It's great that we can welcome all from near and far because of the technology. This morning we have an esteemed panel of
It's okay.
Someone is unmuted, please.
Okay. Maria, you're muted. Okay. Nope.
It's going.
There you go.
Okay. This morning we have an esteemed panel of colleagues who will discuss the intersection between race and dispute resolution. The issues of race are deep-rooted in American society. We are living with the legacy of slavery in our structures, our policies, our practices, and it's awful. Because of who we are as conflict resolvers, we have a special responsibility to make sure that our field is diverse, inclusive, that we pay attention to our structures and our practices. This morning, our panelists bring, and I tried to count how many years, over 100 years in this field collectively. And they have very rich experiences that they will be able to share with us. I've known all of them except for James prior to this planning this breakfast, and I'm happy to say I've been delighted to also meet James. Of our panelists, I feel like Marvin is my brother from another mother. We have been together in this field now since the early 80s, and we've worked collaboratively on a variety of projects, particularly in the last decade, and just finished an article last week. And Tajae, I feel like we've known each other since Tajae was, I think, 13 and a peer mediator and has really grown up in this field. We have two of our speakers who have been speakers before. Michael Bertty was one of our earliest speakers, and in fact, he spoke twice at the breakfast in 2004 and 2005 when he was at EEOC. Everyone wanted to hear about the opportunities there. And Marvin, one of our most recent speakers, about 2 years ago. So this morning we bring together a wide range of experiences. Our facilitator will be Matthew Lattimer, who is a co-convener of these breakfasts and is a conciliation specialist at the U.S. Department of Justice Conciliation.
Maria, you're muted again. Maria, you're muted again.
I don't know why that's happening. I don't know where that left off. Matthew Lattimer will be facilitating this morning. He is a co-convener of these breakfasts, and he is a conciliation specialist at the U.S. Department of Justice Community Relations Service. He will have each of the speakers introduce themselves, who will each draw from their own professional, academic, and lived experiences. So without any more from me, I'm turning this over to Matthew. Matthew?
Great, thanks so much, Maria. I appreciate it. And thank you again for the introduction. As Maria had said, this panel is a culmination of a number of conversations that we've had over the summer, most notably since the tragic death of George Floyd. And we really wanted to get a diverse panel of folks from the private sector, from the public sector, from community dispute resolution programs, from the government, from private practice together to really have a full conversation. And this is a conversation. I'll be asking questions of the panelists and really letting them take it from there. We'll also have an opportunity for folks at the end of the session to ask questions of the panelists through the chat function. And we'll be monitoring that throughout the presentation so that we can get to those questions at the end. So without further ado, I'll introduce our panel. We have Tajae Gaynor, who is with Cluster in Westchester, Lauren Jones, who's with the Surrogates Court ADR section, James Wiliams III, who is my colleague with the Community Relations Service of the U.S. Department of Justice. He's actually out of our Los Angeles office. Michael Bertty, as Maria said, who is formerly with the EEOC, and Marvin Johnson, who is a professor of dispute resolution. And in that order, I'll let them introduce themselves and talk a little bit further about their experiences. So we'll begin with Tajae Gaynor. Thank you.
Matthew, thank you. Maria, thank you. I'm honored to be here, honored to speak, honored to learn from you all. Something happened in my video, but I'm hoping that you can still hear me and I'll continue to speak. For those of you who know me, you know that it's rare that I'm at a loss for words. The only time I am is when I'm introducing myself. I never know what to share with folks. So I'll try to share what I think matters the most. So I'm the director of the Westchester Rockland Mediation Center, and we serve individuals and families in Westchester County who are dealing with various disputes. And a lot of times the cases are referred from various courts through our partnership with the Unified Courts in New York State. But we also have referrals from organizations, institutions, and individuals who reach out to us because they're struggling with whatever they're going through. So that's been my blessing. I've worked with the Westchester Rockland Mediation Center since 2006 and became the director of the center in 2016. So I think what's important to share with you all is that my journey in ADR started, as Maria mentioned earlier, as a 12-year-old peer mediator in New York City. There was an initiative at that time, which was called Project Stop, Schools Teaching Options for Peace. And I was fortunate to be trained as a peer mediator. And I, you know, going back, this is many years now, about 20 years ago, I remember taking training and in my mind just saying, why hasn't every young person learned conflict resolution? You know, why is everyone not introduced to mediation? And I was blessed to be able to mediate for a couple of years in middle school. And believe it or not, in 2 years in middle school, I mediated probably 100 cases and was given at the time the Borough President's Award from Fernando Ferrer in the Bronx for my investment in peacemaking. I was fortunate to have a lot of mentors in the field. Some of them are on the call with us: Marvin Johnson, Maria Volpe, Julie Denny, Marcy May, who some of you may know, Lynn Hurdle Price, Homa LaRue. I mean, the list goes on. And these were adults who had an investment in bringing young people, particularly young people of color, into the field very early. I remember going to my first Spider conference in 1996. Wow. And I remember how hard many of the adults fought to have young people there and to make sure that we were integrated, not only in the conference, but in the field itself. And so it's because of adults like that why I'm still in the field today, and why I developed a passion for continuing to push forth peacemaking. Matthew, I think that's all I'll share for now, but I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Tajae. And we'll move on to Lauren Jones.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. Be nice back in the days to walk around and shake hands and give hugs, but here we are, virtually meeting. So as you heard from the introductions, my name is Lauren Jones. I'm currently the ADR coordinator for New York City Surrogates Courts, which involves the 5 boroughs comprised of 7 surrogates. I took this role on in April in the middle of, or the beginnings of COVID. So it's been an interesting transition for me. I come from a varied background. I'm not a purebred mediator, let's say, as you might hear from my fellow panelists. And I'm excited to talk more later in the program about the paths to becoming a mediator, because there's not always a straight line to get there. Sometimes it's a winding path, and sometimes in my instance, it can be very serendipitous, right? You can have mentors and sponsors that actually see something in you that you may not even see in yourself. And that's kind of what happened with me. It set a foot ablaze for love of mediation that I didn't even really know I had. But as a way of background, before coming to the courts or before presuming this role as ADR coordinator, I served as a principal court attorney in the commercial division in New York County for 4 years with 2 different judges. I was first with Honorable Eileen Branston and then Honorable Joel Cohen. So that was the first experience I had being on the bench side, if you will, of the mediation table. And before that, I was a private litigator for 10 years. I was most recently a litigation partner at a national firm, and before that held associate positions doing plaintiff and defense work. So I literally have been on every side of the table, which I think made my ability to transition full-time into the mediation field so much more easy. And it really brought a diversity of perspectives, not only personal diversity, being a Black woman, but also diversity, knowing what it feels like to be on either side of the V, and also understanding what the judicial chamber's perspective is like and what they think about. So, you know, that's kind of my, that's kind of who I am. I laughed when Maria said we combined have 100 years of experience, because I was like, oh, I'm contributing to that for sure, but I'm definitely the rookie on the team. And I think that's important. I think you need to hear from all the perspectives, because not everybody starts in coming in right at the top, right? You start in sometimes as an intern, and then you work your way up to doing pro bono work, and then eventually you work your way up. So I'll be able to share a little bit of more of the entry level type of experience that you need and the way that you can grow in this profession. So I look forward to continuing this discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren. We'll move on to James Wiliams III.
Greetings. Good morning, everyone. I come to you with greetings from still not yet sunny Southern California, Los Angeles. It is a beautiful moonset I was able to take in this morning. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to share, to be present, and to learn and discuss with you all. As Matthew said, I am currently employed with the Community Relations Service, U.S. Department of Justice. I've been there, it'll be 17 years in January. And prior to that, I worked in the human relations field for a few years with the LA County Human Relations Commission. And it was there that I started getting a real passion for doing mediation and community work, but I've been doing it my whole life. I've been involved in like community organizing and student organizing since about 13, doing things in my community. Have graduated from the University of Southern California, and I'm a proud graduate of the University of Southern California. It was there that I learned or got my degree in psychology, specializing in development across the life course. And then I have advanced work in race relations, power and control, and demography. And so those have allowed me to utilize the skills here to be able to track patterns and look at things in terms of power relations, as well as to see through the numbers. Also having taught at the collegiate and undergraduate level, graduate level, and spent some time filling in or assisting young people at the K through 12 level in implementing either peer mediation programs or expanding the perspective around ways to address race and alternative dispute resolution on both college campuses and K through 12 environments, in addition to what we do in the community at large. And so in terms of what I'm doing currently, I'm a lead conciliation specialist in the Los Angeles office of the Community Relations Service, U.S. Department of Justice. And so there I provide leadership around how we assist communities going through conflict based on primarily race, or we work to prevent and respond to violent hate crimes. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve and look forward to the discussion that we will have here today. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Peace.
Thanks so much, James. Appreciate you. We'll continue our panel introductions with Michael Bertty.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be back. Can you hear me now, Maria?
Maria, you're muted again.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. You can hear me. All right. It's a pleasure to be back, and I enjoyed the breakfast meetings. In fact, Maria, today I brought my own coffee. I started out with mediation as a coordinator of the New York District Office's mediation program, New York District Office of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Back in '91, when mediation first surfaced at the agency, we decided to be proactive, and we partnered with Cornell University. And we partnered with Cornell University for the purpose of training mediators, diversifying the ranks, and reaching out to people who would not have had the opportunity. With no offense to any of our attorneys in the audience, but we felt that attorneys were trained to win, and mediation is not about winning. And we needed to change the mindset, shift the paradigm. So we reached out to HR representatives, union organizations, universities, and we were able to train people. What is unique about our program was that we did the training. So whoever came through our program was trained by EEOC and Cornell. We had the EEO laws that we incorporated into the mediation process, so everyone knew what the laws were about and how to deal with them in mediation. We trained about 1,500 mediators over a 10-year period of time. We had a pro bono mediation pool of 85. We hired from that pool about 60 mediators who helped to reduce our backlog of cases. So that was back in the early 90s and mid to late 90s and the 2000s. So we did that for a while, and it was very effective. We were recognized by the New York State and New York City Bar Association as the most diverse mediation program in the state. And we're proud of that. I retired from there and I went to work for the Mark Dry law firm as the VP of Dispute Resolution. That was short-lived because some of you may know Mark Dry. He went to jail, and that shortened my career there. I left there and I used my teaching credentials at Cornell and NYU to promote mediation and teach and train in that area. As a retiree, that was not fulfilling because the hours were short. And so I took on another job at New York City Transit as the Assistant Chief Officer of EEO Investigations, where I brought there the mediation program and was used throughout the throughout transit to resolve internal complaints. We were able to do quite a bit at EEOC, just to backtrack, because we had a big stick. We were able to move cases in or out, depending on how the complainant or the respondent behaved. If they were discriminatory, their case would come out of mediation, and that's kind of how we were able to control things. The biggest part of the process was the convening process, because we were able to find out if the parties were there to either get even or to get free discovery. And we discouraged that, and we would take those cases out of the pool when that surfaced. There are a number of initiatives that were promoted at both throughout my career, at the ELC, at Transit, while I taught at Cornell and NYU. And I tried to retire 3 times, but I don't know, I'm still back in there. I'm a consultant now. So I think I'll pass the baton to my next panelist and welcome your questions and comments as we move forward.
Great, thank you so much, Michael.
You're welcome.
And with that, we'll yield the floor to Marvin Johnson.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Having been part of this breakfast before, I am going to shorten my presentation to give time, Maria knows how I am, to give time for this important discussion. And we got 5 people. And when I was by myself, I didn't have enough time. So I'm gonna make this very quick. I could do what the initial bio for me was, a person with a lot of wealth of diversity and experience. So I'll do that, but something happened yesterday. I'm gonna add a couple sentences and then we can be on our way. I was talking with some of the leaders of the field, the top leaders of the field, going way back to Spider days. I'm not gonna mention names, Maria knows all of them. They're all white males. And what I had to say to them was, I told you about this 20-something years ago, and you all didn't pay any attention to me. Now it took COVID and Black Lives Matters to put this in the forefront. And there was silence because they knew it was true. And I named them all. I said, all of you know by name that I've been pushing this 20-something years ago, and none of you wanted to take action to deal with it. So that's enough for now. If you want to know more about me, those of you who don't know me, you just Google my name, you got more than what you need. So let's get on with the show because there's a lot that's got to be discussed.
Great, thank you so much, Marvin. Really, really appreciate that. And we are going to get into it. I'm going to start with a compound question. Does race matter in ADR? And why does it matter? And I'm going to switch my view to the gallery view so I can see all of the panelists at once and yield that to any and all to take on.
No one's going to jump in. I will. I always like to let everybody else get their word in. But of course it matters because we are part of the culture. We're part of society, and so it should matter. I think it matters in a reverse way. And discriminate, we got an EEOC person, maybe a couple of them here, in a reverse way, in that it's exclusionary. And the area where a lot of people who I train who want to make money on this, in that particular area, in the high stakes commercial area, there's very few people of color, very few Black people doing that work. And so it does matter in that respect because there are people of color. When I do those cases, there are people of color, there are Black people who are in those cases. And that person is the only Black person. And if I'm there, I'm the only mediator there. And everyone else is white. So from my standpoint, it does matter, and we need to do more about, I'm not saying we're not doing anything, but we need to do more about it.
Great, thank you. How about some of the other folks on the panel?
Matt, I'd like to chime in. Yes, it is exclusionary. I found that by having a diverse panel, we were able to be more successful in our delivery of services. So with the diversity that we were able to create, we were able to be more successful. The people who walked away happy, felt fulfilled, felt that their needs were met. And I attribute that to the fact that we had a diverse panel.
Yeah, if I could jump in. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I agree that race does matter. I think the fact that we have to ask the question is probably the problem to me. Is it the only thing that matters? I don't think it's the only thing that matters, but from my perspective, the cultural and life experiences of practitioners help to inform how they guide those experiencing conflict. And especially for those who would have, shared or common experiences. And for me, it's not necessarily what you say to people, but what you represent for them. So at times, those who are experiencing conflict may need someone who, represents them or comes from the same sort of racial makeup or cultural background they do. And I think that should be honored.
And if I could just chime in too, when Maria first reached out to me and Matt about this topic, I gave it some thought, right? And I was like, does race really matter in ADR? And to be honest, my first reaction was, sorry, my gallery missed. My first reaction was, no, it shouldn't. But then I gave it some thought and then I realized, okay, I'm not answering the question, right? It's not in an ideal world, does it? Would it? It's does it right now? And then I realized the answer has to be yes. For many of the reasons that my co-panelists already shared. I mean, the bottom line is that people are people, and that's what makes race matter. America is not an equal place, and Black people are not equal. I mean, that's just a fact, and anywhere. And before you can rectify that situation, you have to recognize it. ADR is just another lens into that reality. And race matters in ADR because we need to see more racial equality and more racial diversity present in the field of ADR. We need more Black mediators, not just for diversity numbers, but because Black mediators, like Tajae was just saying, relate to Black litigants sometimes in a way no one else can. There are certain common experiences, joys, struggles that Black people share with one another that they contain. They don't simply check it at the door when they walk in to a mediation. And that's all part of what's setting the stage in a mediation is, right? Putting everyone on an equal playing field, making everyone feel relatable. And if you have somebody that's completely out of touch with the experience that the litigant and or their client is walking into, well, you're already at a disadvantage. And the lack of creativity that you may employ in coming up to a creative solution may be hampered because you may not even understand the root cause or the root problem behind the client and the litigant, right? And so that's not to say that every Black person, every Black litigant needs a Black mediator. But it's nice to have the option, right? It's nice to be able to let them look at a list and say, you know what, I don't have to choose somebody, but for this instance, I really think it would be helpful to someone that knew where I was coming from, someone that really understood and get it, and then they can have that option. And right now, the reason this whole panel is put together is because we have all recognized there is a lack of options here. And Jay-Z,
Right.
We'll get into it later, but he's shown the light on that, right? He specifically talked about a lack of Black arbitrators, but going beyond that, he's shown a spotlight on the fact there's a lack of Black neutrals, period, in ADR, and mediation is no exception.
Thank you, Warren, for that.
Sir, if I could just jump in very briefly. One of the things that I would say, yes, race matters, but I think to continue what my sister Lauren was saying in that regard, is that it matters also in terms of potential outcomes, in that we're able to ask different questions because our experiences are different and we have a varied background. So it's not even about the things that have been, I want to add to what's been discussed before. When we talk about the potential, it doesn't exist if you're excluding who is able to be at the table. You're also diminishing potential outcomes and the potential ways that outcomes can be reached, and to address the core root causes that may not even be seen. Thank you.
Great, thank you, James, for that. And several folks have touched on this, and I just want to reiterate and kind of expand on this. Is race a qualification for a good mediator?
I'll just jump in and say it's a category that should be considered, right? It's not the only category that should be considered. Just because somebody is of a diverse nature, let's say we're talking about Black in this instance, just because someone is Black does not make them a good mediator, right? It's a factor that should be considered in the same way your training should be considered, in the same way your experience should be considered. The goal for mediation providers should be to have a well-balanced roster, and that should take into consideration many things, including the racial makeup of the roster. And so for that reason, race matters. It just is not the only, I don't think it's the only qualification that needs to be considered when you're selecting a mediator.
Great, thank you.
Matt, training and experience are, I guess, would be at the top of the list. Race helps, but it doesn't matter who you are. If you don't have proper training and you don't have experience, you're not going to get very, very far in the field.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it shouldn't, in a ideal world, you shouldn't even have to think about it. But as I believe it was Lauren said earlier, that we're not dealing in a world that's equal. So because of that, it should be a consideration. And I think the qualifications should be looked at carefully, because if you've got the qualifications, the door should be open. And I guess it depends on the context of the case. But the world we live in today, yes, it should be considered, but I don't think it should be the top qualification, because you got to have, if you don't have the skill set and the knowledge, what you're going to do harm to the rest of the people in the field who are doing this work.
Great, thank you, Marvin. I just want to pick up on something actually that you said, Marvin. Having the qualifications opens the door, but it's not, being Black is not the only qualification. What I want to ask the panel, in your experiences, have you had your qualifications questioned because of your race?
Well, I'll jump in and take that one. It's very simple for me. The quick answer is yes. That depending on where I'm going and who the parties are, at times has determined that. But also I'd say that for me, I would know where I'm going when my age a lot of times was a factor. And so a great deal of time I keep my facial hair because it's all white now. And so there's less questions about it, because even if I started last week, I look like I have some seasoning to my work. And the other piece is, it's not just the qualifications, it's who was it, where were you, how long, and do you have the right relationships, and are you even qualified to be here? And for me, it's been an interesting journey, because first off, I work for the U.S. Department of Justice, and there's a certain level of qualifications that you have to do just to be able to get in the door. And so it has always been, I usually smile when I get the resume questions, particularly when they feel that I'm not qualified to be in their environment. And it's always, fun, because I don't brag about where I went to school. I try to minimize those things and just say, I'm here with the U.S. Department of Justice, or I'm here as a community mediator to help in resolving and getting this issue addressed. And I don't mind some of the questions when it's really about a concern about the technical skill. And it's a technical skill question, I don't mind. But when it's, should I even be in the room? That's a different question, different series of questions.
Yeah, I'll jump in next.
Go ahead, Tajae. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Marvin. I think for me, I started out in the field pretty young, and so I got this sort of look on people's face when I walked in. Like what's he gonna do for me? And that was the thing that always hit me. And for those of you who know me, I had dreadlocks for about 15 years, and so that was the next sort of hurdle for folks. And I think people's perception of me is what made it really challenging. Once we got down to business, a lot of that really changed. I think as everyone, I'll echo what everyone else said, I think, your ability to be effective as a mediator takes hold, but the perception is there. And it's not always what people said, but how they looked at me. And I could tell what they were saying with their eyes, right? We talk a lot about nonverbal communication. It was very clear. And I have to admit that at times I specifically chose co-mediators. Now, whether right or wrong, I don't know, but I specifically chose co-mediators who would, because of who they are, because I knew that the way the clients would look at them would help to qualify me, unfortunately. That's the reality. And so it has been a struggle. I think as I'm getting a little bit older and probably more, boisterous about who I am and what matters, some of that has shifted. But yeah, I think the fact that I'm a Black man and I started in the field younger, I think it made people question who I am and whether or not I had the ability to be able to support them.
If I can, I'd just like to chime in too. As the only Black woman on this panel, right, I can echo many of the same experiences that my panelists have had, but I also have some probably unique ones, right? I'm also very young. I'm not that young, but I'm young enough, and I have a baby face, so people think I'm younger than I am. When I was a partner at the firm, I would walk into a mediation, and 9.5 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, there was a presumption that I was the client, right? I was never the mediator, and I was never the partner representing the client. I was the client. Okay. Transition to now working in court. I'm in the commercial division in New York County. I walk in with my suit and I get questioned by litigants as to whether or not I'm the court clerk, or better yet, am I the court reporter? At the end of the day, and then once we've moved past what my actual role is, then there's the qualification check. Well, where did you go to school? Well, I went to Duke undergrad. Oh, that's good. Where did you go to law school? I went to Brooklyn Law School. Oh, wow. And I was, and then you feel like you start to play into this, right? You start to run down your resume because you don't question why you're there, but you feel like you need to impress upon them that they should understand why you're there. And really, it's not the right way to behave, but it's innate because, again, America's not equal, and you're trying to put yourself on this equal footing to get them to view you equally. But at the end of the day, I can tell you, I walked away from that mediation table as counsel with a good settlement. I walked away from those mediations when I was handling them with the case settled. And then, and only then, did I get the respect. Then I got, oh, wow, you're really good at this. Can I call you for the next one? Let me tell my friends about you. And so one thing I will say to those folks that are feeling like they get the qualification check and don't know what to do, don't hang your head down low, right? Pick your head up high and let them have a reason for feeling silly for even checking you or questioning you in the beginning. Let them walk away saying, wow, you know what? She was good. He was good. And I was wrong. Because that, at the end of the day, that's the victory, right? It sucks that we have to go through it, but that's the real victory.
Thanks so much for that, Lauren.
So it's not, we don't have an equal playing field. We don't have an equal playing field here. And we know this has been, we've only been on about 25 minutes in terms of this presentation, and it's come up 3 or 4 times. So there are assumptions that people have about who we are. And it's often implicit in their questioning of you before they hire you, in the discussions that you have to have. And that's the reality of what it is. But as was said, that if you are good, your skill set is good, after your session, then they wanna call you back? Can we call you again? And things of that nature. Personally, for me, I've never had to advertise or do anything. All my work has come from word of mouth from folks who have used me. The problem is that some people don't get that door open to be able to do that in the commercial level where all the money is being made. And that's been my cause of trying to get that door opened. And I would not be where I am. I had two white mentors, one for arbitration and one for mediation, who opened the door for me years ago. And because of my skill set, I was able to continue on, and they passed the word along to other people. But the goal for me is to try to get people in the door so their skills can be seen, so the same thing that happened to me can happen to others. They can pass your name around internally. And believe me, the attorneys talk to each other, and they will pass your name around, and that's how you get to work at the commercial to upper level.
Yeah, Matt, as a coordinator, one of my goals was to make sure that when that question surfaced, it would become a non-issue. And because we trained all of our mediators, the response that I had my folks say was, I'm a trained EEOC mediator. That was the criteria. And from there, as some of my fellow panelists have said, your performance, your experience, and your reputation develops, and that's how you get recognized and eliminates that question of what kind of experience you have.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. Trying to wait out the parade of ambulances going by. But let me ask folks, because you've all touched upon it. How do you even get into the door? How do you make your way into the ADR field? What steps can be done to attract more people of color, more Black people, more women of color as well? And each of you touched upon it. Let's just expand upon that conversation.
I'll jump in first. I know that I don't have a traditional ADR background in terms of schooling and education. And so for me, the agency that I work with found me when they were actively looking for someone with the skill set that I brought. That at the time, I was fluent in Spanish and working here in Los Angeles. And so it afforded me an opportunity to speak to many communities across the country that we ended up working with that helped. They were actively looking for someone like me that had the peacemaking skills from the street that could then be refined into the more professional skill set that we had. Additionally, when I came on, I was hired with a young woman who may have worked with you, Michael. Her name was Elisa Makunga, and she became a mediator with EEOC. And she was a native Spanish speaker, one of the most amazing mediator facilitators I've ever seen, equally skilled, equally powerful in both languages. And it's rare that you find someone that is able to move and do things in one language at the same skill level in the other. So what I have found is working to expand the space for women really has, I wouldn't have a job without women. That it was the women that made way and made space so that I could get in, and I have worked to return that favor and service in terms of approaches to the work, in terms of opportunity. I think that one of the ways that we work is how can we see who's in the room with us, and then whoever is not represented is to work to find a way that they get the equity that they need. And for me, particularly in these fields, it has been after, once I got in, grateful that I was in, it's been getting women in and being able to not just have women be present, because presence isn't the issue. I think the issue is influence and power, the ability to be heard, so that I know there were times when I'd be working in the process that if someone else, not Black, said exactly what I said, it would get heard and action would get taken. And I would see that at times I would do the same favor for my sisters. I think that as we look at addressing this issue, we have to really get into the core root of where this is coming from.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Maria and Matthew did a good job of getting people in different parts of the field, because I think the doors are different depending on which part of the field you're coming from. Now, I've been talking, even though I've fought for all the doors, but I see the biggest boulder or the biggest door is in the commercial, where all the money is, and where you can charge $400 an hour, $500 an hour. So I'll speak to that, but I think some of it goes down a couple of, or across, and I hate to do hierarchy, it goes across to a couple of other doors, in that if it's someone that knows you, who is not the same as you, who knows the attorneys, that they can give the he or she is okay. I was fortunate to have that in the beginning, and my work did and still speaks for itself. And so then you have other people to do that. So part of it's relationships and people who can speak for you and help open the door for you. And if you're good, that's all they need to do, because if you're good, you're good, and people will start passing it around. So that's my general piece on this. Is you've got to have someone. Tajae had a bunch of mentors. I was one of them, and I would speak for him. If he asked me to write anything, I would write it. But you've got to have, I think, you've got to have someone that connected, what we called them, and I think I wrote an article, the gatekeepers. Someone who knows the gatekeepers, who can get them to open the gate so that you can get in. So I'll leave it at that for others to comment.
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah, it was important for me personally, for my district director, who was also a person of color, and for the agency to have a diverse field. And for that reason, we went out and looked for a diverse population. And we did not go to bar associations. We went to HR professionals, universities. We talked with Maria. We went all over. And then we created our own training program. And through the training program, we didn't just train people, because what we found was that there were organizations training people, charging, and then that was the end of it. Our program was different, because attached to that was on-the-job training and an opportunity to become a pro bono mediator. And that was key, because you get a skill set. If you don't use it, you lose it. We provided opportunities for these people, all shades, male and female, non-attorneys, as well as some attorneys, to practice the craft as we wanted it to be delivered. And we were able to watch them. And one of the main factors for doing the pro bono mediation is that we had a pool of money where we were able to hire mediators, and we hired them from the pool of pro bonos. So if you performed well, we put you on our roster, and then you made money. And it was decent, and we had plenty of cases at the EEOC. So I think that by having a proactive approach, going out and looking for the people that you want in your pool, becoming a mentor, providing opportunities for folk to do on-the-job training, teaming them up with staff to do these types of things was great. As for myself, my beginning came as a result of community service. Through my fraternity, I was involved in community services, and I was asked to be a volunteer mediator in the Superior Court in New Jersey. Non-pay, it was in the early 90s, before mediation was even identified as a tool at the EEOC. And it's through that training that I got my first stepping stone and moved on through. It is not a field that you go into, you take a course and you become a mediator. It's something that you have to develop over a period of time. So I guess the WIFM, what's in it for me, would be find a mediator, find a mentor, take on training, and recognize that you're not going to become a millionaire overnight.
Or ever. Which is the other struggle. I mean, Lauren, I'm sorry if I cut you off. You know, I just wanted to share that, you know, from my perspective, it's a huge challenge in particular for people of color in this field. As Marvin, you know, mentioned earlier, you know, a lot of the money sits in the commercial sector in mediation, and it's harder for people of color to sort of break into that. As a director of a CDRC, and the one thing I can certainly put out there for those of you who know and don't know, that CDRCs do provide an opportunity for folks to take training, apprentice, and gain experience. And as everyone mentioned, experience is the key. But I have conversations with folks every day who ask me, you know, how do I make this a profession for myself? You know, how do I put myself in a position where I could earn money and take care of my family? And, you know, at times I have to be honest with people and say, it's going to be a tough journey. It's not easy, especially those folks who come through the community aspect of this work. It's not easy. And you all know, there's a ton of training out there. Just look on the listserv. There's trainings every single day. There's money to be made in trainings, but there are a good number of the folks who are going to go through training and may not necessarily have the opportunities. And that's the struggle for me. So, you know, in answering this question, I think three things sort of stand out for me. One, I think there needs to be more of a concerted effort to promote mediation, particularly in the larger Black community. I think the more we have Black people who are looking at this as a viable option to resolve issues, I think that creates more of a space for people of color to be more involved as practitioners. The second thing is there has to be more you know, lucrative professional opportunities for people, particularly people of color in the field. And that's the struggle. If there are not enough jobs, if you got 12 people vying for 8 jobs, 4 people are sort of out of it. And so there has to be more opportunities, you know, and I've had conversations with, you know, young Black men coming up in the field, young Black women who say, you know, my struggle is I would love to do this work, but I need to be able to put food on the table. And I get that as a struggle. You know, the other thing is there has to be much more, you know, scholarship opportunities for folks to take the, you know, graduate level degrees that are now available, have been made more available in the past, you know, 15 years or so, as well as trainings. You know, a school like, you know, Columbia University is great, but not everybody's going to be able to, you know, accumulate $80,000 of debt. And jump right into a profession and be able to pay that along with all the other expenses that they have. So that's as well a struggle. And I think we have to really look at those three things, creating more, you know, opportunities for people to make this a profession and take care of their family, scholarship opportunities for people of color to get in the field and be able to start in the field without a ton of debt, and widespread promotion of ADR as an option for the larger Black community.
So if I could just piggyback on this, I mean, a lot of the comments, of course, going last has already been said, but, you know, like Marvin said, mediation is largely a referral business, right? People tend to refer to people like themselves. So that's one of the big reasons it's tough for Black mediators to get a break. particularly at the high end value of the market, and then it becomes this vicious cycle. You know, for those that are looking to kind of do your part, reach out and look for a Black mediator or a Black law student who's considering mediation and mentor them. You know, as I think everyone shared, we would not be where we are if it was not for mentors and sponsors that saw something in us and brought us along or elevated us beyond where they were. You know, open your networks to them. Promote them, train them. Training is the base level that every mediator needs to go through to be able to scale the heights of becoming a top mediator, right? I mean, even coming from the courts, right? If you want to be on a court roster where you can get paid, you need to satisfy certain training requirements. And that's a minimum of 40 hours at Part 146 approved training. Those are expensive. You know, bar associations can really play a huge serve a bridge here for those young Black people, or not even have to be young, we're just Black mediators that want to get in the door but can't afford the training. You know, I'm happy to have Chuck Newman on this call because he, as the chair of the ADR section, dispute resolution section with the New York City Bar, is a big advocate for this, right? The New York City Bar is actually walking the talk. I worked with the DR section to organize a training, and they made it a very important part that we have 24 slots. 20 of them will be paid, 4 will be specifically reserved for full scholarships for diverse applicants. That's what needs to be done. That's how you help to build this pipeline. And moreover, other providers that, you know, big outfits, they really can do their part too, right? They can begin to build a pipeline of young mediators that can serve to fill in the gaps when the current top retires, right? Everyone can't be at the top forever. And so we need to be building the pipeline, and it's a dual win, right? These providers can also tout out to their corporate clients, hey, look at this. You have a diversity statement? Well, we do too. And we're not just talking it, we're gonna put them before you. We're gonna match them up with senior mediators. We're gonna give them and groom them to be able to grow within the profession, because without that, there will be no change. We're just going to be talking about this without affecting any change. You know, there's a quote, right? If we don't initiate change, then we probably stand in its way. This is no exception. As ADR professionals, we consider ourselves problem solvers, and if we're not offering any solutions to this problem, then we're part of the problem. And specifically coming from my own role as ADR coordinator, you know, I believe Marvin used the phrase gatekeeper. That's exactly how I feel like I am. I'm the gatekeeper to some extent to diversifying the rosters, right? I make it my business to speak to anyone that wants to speak to me. I do. Many of you may have seen my face before, maybe not with the braids, but you know, I am often speaking and trying to promote diversity within the surrogates court ADR system, you know, because I really recognize that the varying viewpoints is what's needed to be able to relate to the clients. And without that, you know, again, there's not going to be any change. So those people that serve in coordinator roles, that serve as those that can actually select the mediators and assign them, this is for us. This is something that we can do. We can make this change, and we can help the next generation of mediators come through.
Can I just follow up on 2 things, Matthew? Tajae's list, I want to talk a lot about 2 or 3 of them, and Lauren hit on almost a couple of the same thing. I know those of you who know me know this, but I created a center to deal with some of these issues. Tajae talked about, you know, educating the community. We're going to celebrate our 35th anniversary next year. Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution in Maryland. We have the most diverse conference in the whole United States. And our mission is to educate the community about ADR. So I want to say that. And Tajae's, Maria, and they've been to our conference, so I don't need to speak any more about that. So that's an effort that I've been doing for over 35 years. And I started teaching at a historically Black university, and that's where this whole thing started out. So I just want to put that on the ground, that I've been trying I've been walking the talk for longer than I want you all that I want to admit that I've been on this earth. Training, an example, and I agree with everything that's been said, but I want to talk about what happened in Maryland, and I tried to stop it. I think I've gotten a hold of it a little bit, because as Tajae said, you can make money in training, and a lot of people are doing that. But what happened in Maryland, which ticked me off, is some people were training people of color, and then when they want mentorship, oh, go with the Marvin Center. So I had to put a stop to that, because when they called me, I said, who trained you? you should go back to them and tell them that they should mentor you or find a way to mentor you into the field, because they took your money and they didn't want to go the next step for you. I tried to talk to what the court program is macro here, and to get them to put a rule or something in place where if you train someone, you should do some extra work. Well, that fell on deaf ears. But what I've had to do is to tell folks, you need to go back to them, because, I mean, we've got a long list of people already that we're trying to mentor. And, you know, you come to our program, you come to our conference, you'll be part of our family, and we have to mentor you. But that is going on. Tajae mentioned it, and I just wanted to speak on that. That's it, Matthew. Sorry for coming back a second time.
Not at all. You know, appreciate the conversation. And one thing I just want to add, and it's not to throw cold water on any of what's been said, but we're dealing with COVID-19 right now. Everyone is in their house or close to their house. So how has that changed the opportunity, just as you mentioned, Marvin, for mentorship and other opportunities, including networking? How has that affected opportunities for folks who are looking to get into the field, especially folks of color?
I'll start just from it's been difficult for me to do what I normally do to help folks. Because, you know, as you said, people aren't getting out. I still get phone calls, but things have slowed. In fact, we're doing a training next week after next, and we're switching it over to the Zoom, and there's not as many people in the class that normally would be. So I would leave it to some of the other panelists to say, from my view, it's been difficult. It's also difficult to get mentor folks at some of the high-end cases, because in the in-person, who is this person? You know, you got to get permission right ahead of time before you can bring them in, if you're honest. Otherwise, you're saying that they work with you and they really don't. So some people will say, no, I don't want anyone in or not. So with COVID and the Zoom, I found it a little more difficult. Someone on the panel may be more creative and know how to do it better, but I just found it to be a little more difficult. And I'm hoping, in my view, my hope is that within at least 9-10 months that we can go somewhat back to semi-normal. I don't think we'll ever get back to normal, but semi-normal, and we can pick up the pace at that point. But someone else on the panel could probably give a different perspective.
I'll certainly jump in if I can. Matthew, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
So the CDRC network in New York State put in a lot of time and energy into transitioning into the virtual world, so we could continue to provide mediation services for folks in need. And in a very short turnaround time, at least for my center, we were able to, within 6 weeks, learn Zoom and figure out how to train our panel of volunteer mediators and staff, and begin to provide mediation. What we also did was we turned our apprenticeship into an online virtual apprenticeship experience. Now, it may not be ideal, and, you know, I struggled with it in the beginning because I feel like there's a lot lost from, you know, moving from in-person to virtual. But what we learned is it can happen and it can be successful. And for those folks who took our training, who are still looking to work towards their certification, I think the online opportunity allowed them the opportunity to continue to sort of build on the skills they learned. And so it is possible. I think we have to be creative. You know, if you're not creative, you die out, right? And so you got to figure out how to evolve. And so I think we have to figure it out. To what Marvin said, I think virtual mediation under this sort of online world we live in now is here to stay. And I may be a bit, you know, sort of, it took me for a ride in the beginning. Let me just put it that way. But I can see the benefit of it being an option for folks. And I think it should be an option. We probably will transition back to some level of normalcy, but I think it needs to be an option. And so I sort of put it out there that we found some level of success, but we've had to be creative and we've had to sort of think out of the box and all the things that we talk to people about in ADR, right? Sort of being creative and thinking a little deeper and thinking about options that go out of your comfort zone. But it can work and it does work, but you got to put the time and energy into it in the beginning to make sure it happens in a way that's effective and learn how to sort of make shifts when it's not.
Great, thank you.
If I could just also, Matt, throw out that, you know, there's always a silver lining, right? So to some extent, I would argue that COVID has made networking a little bit easier, right? You no longer have to, for instance, look at the meeting right now, right? You don't have to get up and get dressed per se, put on shoes and go get on the train to the 8:30 a.m. breakfast meeting in Lower Manhattan, right? You could sit right here and you could log on, and then, wow, you can also make a 10 o'clock networking event. You can make an 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock if you're so inclined, right? You could do it across the country. You could do it across the world. So there is something to be said to the accessibility that you, as someone that's looking to enter the field or is already in the field, has in this electronic world that we're living in. So I think it is about how creative you could be, like Tajae was just saying, you know, can you make this spin to adjust to maybe our new reality or our temporary reality. You know, the other thing I will say is that observing mediations may also become a little bit easier in this day and age. Sometimes the physical body of a stranger sitting in a mediation can feel a little bit off-putting. In this day and age, you know, you can literally be a fly on the wall. You can sit there without a picture and just have a name or a black screen or whatever and be present and still get all the benefits that you would otherwise have from that experience without making perhaps the clients or the litigants feel awkward. And you know, the last thing I'll say is, in terms of the age of COVID and mediations, as Tajae pointed out, the court system has always been up and running to some extent as it pertains to ADR. But surrogate, you know, as I said, I took this role on as the New York City ADR coordinator in April. So that was in the beginning, middle of COVID. Everything that we have done has been built around virtual. We do our trainings virtually. I meet, as some people in the chat have attested to, I've met with interested mediators virtually. I do virtual networking and coffee chats. So it really can keep going. And we've been doing our mediations, obviously, virtually. And so some of the ideas I've been thinking about to try to even expand the panoply of options is to do virtual town halls with mediators and those rostered mediators, as well as litigants, the users of the system, so that the mediators can have some exposure to the litigants and they could be, you know, they could feel more comfort in selecting them. So there's a few, and the dual benefit also was hopefully to knock down some implicit biases that may be present as well. But there's a lot of creativity that we can use to capitalize on this new normal.
Great, thank you for that, Lauren, I appreciate it.
Yeah, Matt, as my colleagues on the panel have mentioned, this is a trying time under the coronavirus. And I think it was Tajae who talked about time and energy. Well, I think it's a two-pronged process in terms of getting mentors. First, the mentee has to be willing to put in the time. And speaking with some of my former colleagues, one of the problems that they've had was that with students, they'll take a portion of their semester and do field work or become a mentor, a mentee, and they do it for 6-7 sessions, and then they're done. Well, that's not enough to get the skill set. So I believe in, you know, if you're not part of this, the solution, you're part of the problem. So what I would like to do is to reach out to my colleagues, my former colleagues, and get back to Maria, you, and to Matt, and see if I can help facilitate a mentoring type process. Now, it's a little difficult now because of the coronavirus and a lot of things being done virtually, but I don't think this will last forever. And if it ever goes back to what we used to know as normal or a portion of that surfaces again, I think that there might be opportunity for people who are serious about learning a skill and putting the time in. So if they're willing to put the time in, I'll see if I can get the mentors. I'll provide the information to Maria and Matt and see where it goes from there.
Thanks so much, Michael. That'd be a great idea. And hopefully we can get folks together to do that. That would be great.
That's what we do, man.
Excellent, Michael. Michael, excellent, 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 excellent. Because I didn't get off on that. I'm glad you brought that in, because my history is people taking the training, thinking the skies are going to open up and they're going to become, you know, a super mediator, and it doesn't work that way. There's people who get the training, try for 6 months and say, oh, I can't do it. You've got to find a mentor. It's a stick-to-itiveness and to really want this if you want to be a good mediator. Just to be a mediator, you got to do it. But if you want to break into the field and you want to, Tajae said, people come to him and they want to do it for money. Most of the people who come to my training want to do it for money. And I emphasize that you can't just get this training and just walk out the door and think that's going to happen. So you gotta do the work. You gotta get more cases, be it at the EEOC or Human Relations. There's a track to get on. But in this society, everything's happening so quick nowadays that folks don't have the patience that it takes to really do this work. And at the end of our training, we say, don't quit your day job. You know, you got to work your way through it and then quit your day job when you start getting the cases.
Thank you for that. I just have one last question, and then I think we'll open up questions from the chat field. So, and this is for everyone. What role do you see race playing in the future of the dispute resolution field?
This is James. I see it still playing a huge role, considering that we exist in a system that is a settler colonial system, and that as we build relationships, we can find ways and tools to manage or mitigate that. But providing that the work towards equity, as even folks in the chat are saying, this is a societal issue, it's a systemic issue, an institutional issue, and that this is what we can do within this field is to create the ways and processes to diminish the systemic and institutional ways that race and racism impact the participants in this field. And then the pieces that Marvin and Michael have talked about is provide opportunity for folks.
To the day when we can sit down again and do homework.
Someone is not muted. They're coming on.
You now have the patio?
Sorry.
All right, so sorry about that. And it will provide us an opportunity to really look. I mean, I think that the main reason we're even having part of this discussion is due to COVID, is due to the fact that people have to sit at home and contend with very more intimate relations with people that they live with in ways that they haven't in probably 30, 40 years, or for some folks their entire lives, in very intimate space for long periods of time. And we've been exposed to looking at this. I mean, you referenced the piece with George Floyd and others. And so now it's not just George Floyd, but for many folks, it's been the nearly 100 people since George Floyd. And now the people actually have names to be able to connect to that. And so that as we continue our work, the goal is that I don't just go from I need a mediator to let me call Lauren and say, I have a situation over there, or, let me see how Marvin's program works to see if I can implement that in my locality, my municipality. let me check and free up my schedule so that I can be a part of a mentoring piece that Michael is talking about. It's an opportunity for us to really look at ourselves and see what can we do. How can we utilize our networks, our resources, our relationships to create a more equitable outcome for the folks, not just in this field, but in every area of people activity that we touch.
Oh, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Matthew, if I could just jump in there quickly. I mean, it's a weird question for me because, I mean, I guess I could ask, what role does race play in law enforcement? What role does race play in housing? And there's so many different areas I think you can ask that question. And the truth is race plays a role in everything because race exists because we exist, or race exists because of how we see each other. And we have a lot to deal with as a country, right? Race exists in America. And we have a lot that we need to sort of grapple with. I think our field can absolutely grow, but the folks who are not people of color need to be able to recognize the value of diversifying our field, and having more people of color involved in the leadership of our field. That to me is important. And this is something I think we'll probably struggle with for a long time because for whatever reason, we as a nation, we are afraid of not just the conversations, but what could potentially come from a deeper conversation in terms of areas of resolution that may be possible.
Thank you.
Matt, if we're getting our last words in, there's a few things I guess I'll say. One thing that really got me as I listened to your question, as I was thinking about this topic for the past few weeks, is the same way a person is guaranteed a trial in front of a jury of her peers is the same standard mediation should have, right? Mediation should guarantee a neutral of a litigant's peers, or at least the option of having one. And until we can get there, we haven't yet been successful, I think, in moving the needle of diversifying the ADR field. And until the world, or at least the country, changes, race has to continue to play a part in ADR because it plays a part everywhere else. And quite frankly, if companies, insurance companies, for instance, and corporate clients, if they start demanding diversity in their ADR panels, the demand's going to be met. Right? Because at the end of the day, money talks. So I think that we really need to be intentional about leveling the playing field. We may not be able to change the world, but we could change this field.
Just weigh in quickly with an example, and it's happened more than once. I can name him because he was at our virtual conference and he didn't mind it. So Steve Erickson, who's been in the field for a while, he came into ACR and was on the board, gravitated toward me and some of the work that I was doing. And he got so close to me that people started treating him as they would treat me. And he came to me and he said, "I don't understand." And I said, "That's because you are so close to me, they think that you're, and that it's implicit bias." And I said, "This is how Black people feel." He said, "I don't like that." And I said, "We don't either. But now that you know, what are you going to do about it?" And so this happened a number of times. Sue Small, who traveled with me, we're doing training together, how the people would ask her, go to her for questions before me when we're training together. I was the lead trainer, they thought she was, but most people of color know that. But when people get to see it, it's what can they do to help to change it? Because you've got a lot of people who don't believe it. I mean, now that they saw the video of George Floyd, but the little implicit bias, the microaggressions that go on every day, a lot of white folks don't see that. And when they can see it, then they need to speak out about it or do whatever they can. And having taught in a Black university, there were white students there. Some of them wanted to leave. I don't know why they gravitated toward me, but I always told them, outside of these gates, it's different. And now you see what these students, you're getting the treatment implicitly that they get in their lives outside of these gates. If you stay here, become an ally, then you can teach your parents and teach other people what to do. I think that's what we've got to do together and move this thing forward. So sorry to take a little more time because I know you want to get the questions, but I thought I needed to add that.
I mean, that's an important point to make, I think, and I don't want to be the last speaker, but we'll move to the questions after this. I think what has happened, and a lot of people have said this, is that with COVID restrictions, including mask wearing, including social distancing, including gyms being closed, including restaurants being closed, a lot of people have felt some of the, felt a lot of restrictions that Black folks have felt. You know, and some of the pushback that people are receiving, or pushback that people are giving, is because they feel those restrictions, which, you know, also kind of intensifies the conversation that we're having now, makes it all the more relevant, and makes it a lot more tangible to a lot of folks. I'll just say that, and then we can go to the question.
Matthew, are you ready to hear some of the questions people have been typing in?
Yes, go ahead, Nikki. I was just about to send you a message.
Wonderful. So our discussion has progressed a little bit, but I have the questions collected in a little bit of chronological order. And so we'll move through and flow as the panelists feel. But the first question was from Cornelia, who wanted to ask whether life experience matters in the forming of a.
I think you dropped off, Nikki, with the last part of that question. Could you repeat it?
I'm sorry, I apologize. And many of you have addressed this. Cornelia asked, does life experience matter in the forming of a mediator?
I would say absolutely. Those skills are transferable, and you can't buy them. So the short answer is yes.
Yeah, I would agree with Michael to that point. I mean, I think our life experiences help to inform, you know, how we travel our paths, how we engage others, particularly those in conflict. And that's why I think it's important that, you know, we do have diverse panels, because those in conflict at times may need to be surrounded by folks who they believe have similar experiences to them. And so, yes, my answer is absolutely. I think your life experiences do help to inform who you are as a practitioner.
Great. The next question is, the mediation trainings and qualifications are so expensive. How do we as a community make this work more accessible and available to people in the community? And that question is from Michelle.
Well, one thing I spoke on, sorry, Tajae. One thing I spoke on earlier was bar associations looking to sponsor folks that are looking to get trained. I mean, you know, not that anyone has unlimited funds here, but that's one avenue of support. There's also, sometimes there's trainings that are actually free. You know, capitalizing on those less expensive ones that may be offered by a CDRC or maybe offered by the courts. And, you know, maybe you'd have to amass several of them. Maybe it won't be one 24-hour setting, but all of these little things, every nugget that you can get from anywhere, you know, grab onto, because it is an expensive thing. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I recognize it is very expensive, but there are avenues, there are scholarships that you can even apply for. You know, there are informal ways, following, shadowing mediators and things like that, that's free. So that is one, but yeah, it is a little bit of saving, I'm not gonna lie. Some of it is just saving and being intentional about this. The same way any other goal you may have, you really wanna get a car, that's something you really want, you gotta save the money for it and invest in yourself.
And just to add to what Lauren is saying, I try to make an investment in folks looking to come into the field who may not necessarily have the resources to pay for the training when we have training scheduled. We usually have a few scholarship spots available for folks who want to come in. We've had folks at times who, have the passion, but the finances just aren't there. And they've reached out to me and we've had conversations and they've come and they volunteered for the center and done other sort of work to sort of pay back what the cost of training would be. I would sort of encourage folks to reach out to your local CDRC and to see what opportunities may exist, or even reach out to trainers and see what may be possible. It's always a no if you don't ask.
If I may also add very quickly and briefly is that because I work for the government, many of the trainings and resources that we provide are provided as of no direct charge to the folks because it's paid for by the people. So that a lot of the tools and trainings that we offer in terms of the programs that we have to aid community or for learning how to facilitate a meeting around the community issues, those things that we offer are no direct cost to the participants or trainees. And we're also moving to offer those online as we go forward. So if you can look for those and check our social media and our website for that.
I just hope FMCS would follow that, because FMCS is charging, and I know it's because of budgetary reasons, and their cost isn't as cheap as it should be. So I'll just leave that alone. But that's a political statement, I guess, and so I'm not going to get you in it, James. Sorry.
So the next question that I wanted to share with the panelists is from Marcus, and they ask, word of mouth is limited to the old boy network, and we all know that's fraught with racism. This builds on a little bit all of your stories, I think. What are the alternatives?
I'm not sure if I understand that question. Can you?
So I think this was in response to talking about how do you gain traction as a dispute resolution professional? How do you get to those gatekeepers and have them open the doors? And how are you recommended by your peers if that peer group, the people that are hiring and recommending and spreading the word about great mediators and dispute resolutions are part of the old boy network? What are the other options? And I mean, I think part of the reason why we had all.
Uh-oh, you're freezing. You're freezing.
You speak today is that you are all gatekeepers in your own right. So maybe in and of it. I'm sorry. Just to summarize, my connection is unstable all of a sudden. It's been great throughout, but how else, other than word of mouth by an old boy network, can professionals promote their brand?
So I'd like to just hop in because I'm not quiet. If one thing that I think is a really good idea, and this is not limited to ADR, candidly, because when I was at the firm, I used this tactic to try to get business, right? Find who likes you. And start there. If there's some niche groups that you belong to just by virtue of you being you. So, if you're a woman, for instance, there's a multitude of women bar associations. If you're Black, there's the Metropolitan Black Bar Association. And every other demographic essentially has groups that are kind of just for them, that are catering more towards them than not. Start there. Pitch yourself to them, let them know you're available to be a resource for them. And I think you'd be surprised at the responses that you get, because again, people like people sometimes that look like them and that relate to them. And if you are only focusing on trying to get work the traditional way through the old white boys network and you don't look like that, well, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. And I'm not saying that that's not one that you should not be fighting, but why not do things on parallel tracks, right? Why not try to get something that may be a little more low hanging? I can tell you as the co-chair of the ADR task force for the Metropolitan Black Bar Association. And we held two events, two sold out events in earlier this year that were geared just to promote the idea of ADR to diverse professionals, because they didn't even know that it existed, not only as a field at all. And so there is a prime example. You have folks that don't even know about it. So they're not thinking about the old white boy network. They're thinking about who can I go to that might be able to better understand, explain this to me? Who can I go that I won't feel so overwhelmed or so judged by even not knowing that this exists, right? So there's a lot of different groups that you can alternatively chart a path through that may quite frankly be uncharted.
So very quickly, because we're running out of time, I want to add to that two things that kind of highlights that even more, what Lauren just said. Mediators tend to hang around mediators. You don't get your work from mediators. You have to go to the other professions that would hire mediators. Go to those conferences and maybe speak at those conferences, and you have the platform all to yourself. You can collect their cards and you can get back to them. Also, related to that, conflict is everywhere. Whatever field there is, there's people. Wherever there's people, there's conflict. So go to the various things, the condo associations, go to places like that.
Your performance will speak for itself.
And if I could just add to what everybody has shared, I think as you sort of move forward in that journey, find ways to give back, find ways to help expand and grow the field. I'm a strong advocate for conflict resolution in schools. There's not enough of an investment. There's not enough people going into schools, particularly people of color going into schools, to helping young people learn these essential skills. And so as you move forward, as you start to gain your successes, find ways to go back into schools and communities and educate those, because those are the folks who will be either future leaders in this field or future clients of this field. And both of those things are important.
That's great. Thank you. I've stopped my my internet is very slow, but I've been sending Matthew the next question to you. I don't know if you want to address the question about liaising possibly with the National Association of Social Workers in New York City, or the panelists have something to say about connecting with partnerships. You've spoken about this a little bit before with HR and reaching out to a diversity of organizations.
I just think that's key, Nikki. We developed a connection with the social work school up in Baltimore. We get a number of social workers into our training, and they've worked to make it part of their accreditation. There's certain things they have to do, like lawyers got their CLEs. So a lot of social workers have to do certain things too. And if they can get their local chapter, whatever, to make mediation a part of it, then that gives them more of a incentive to go and get the training. But everybody needs to be trained. There's conflict everywhere. So having those skill set, even starting young, as Tajae said, it's going to help everybody. It's going to help the field. So everybody, we need to have connections all the way across the board, which is why I like the name Spider that we used to have, because the spider web, it goes, it's all the way across. And that's what it is. I mean, we've got to connect with every profession, every way of life, everybody. And that's how the field will become bigger and better and stronger than ever.
Great, thank you. I want to thank our panelists for getting up early, and especially in James Williams' case, really getting up early to participate on the panel. With that, I'll turn it back to Maria to cap us off. And certainly, I'll say this, you know, this is a good beginning to the conversation, and we hope that we can continue, you know, having this conversation, and certainly do this again.
Well said, Matt. Thank you so much for facilitating this amazing morning with our distinguished colleagues who have brought a wealth of experience, both from their academic, professional, and lived experience. Thank you everyone for being here. We will meet again next month on the first Thursday of the month. Till then, be well and take care.
Maria,
Yes?
hi, this is Michelle Camp.
Bye, Maria. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Wait, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thanks again.
Peace. Enjoy your day.
Bye-bye. Take care now.
Maria, Dr. Dolores